Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Today, many of us are also standing in our own battlefields. Not with weapons, but with stress, confusion, fear, relationships, and purpose in life. The Gita is not a book of religion alone. It is a manual for life. It teaches us how to make decisions when we are confused, how to stay calm in difficult situations, how to perform our duties without fear, and most importantly, how to understand who we truly are. Let's start from what is science of the soul.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the mind of a military commander literally moments before an apocalyptic war breaks out. We're going to unpack this by looking at a very specific ancient source, verses 1.8 through 1.10 of the Bhagavad Gita. Even if you're not super familiar with the text itself, the psychological dynamics at play here are just incredible. We're going to break down the mindset of the leader, Duryodhana, as he looks out over the battlefield, and we'll see exactly how a leader can mask his own deep-seated anxieties with these massive grand displays of military might. It's a profound question, right? What actually goes through a commander's mind moments before an apocalyptic war? Well, by analyzing Duryodhana's words here, we get a front-row seat to a masterclass in, honestly, psychological compartmentalization. On the outside, we're going to see a man projecting the sheer, unbreakable invincibility. He's got the numbers, he's got the absolute legends on his side. But as we break down the source text and the commentary, we're going to contrast those loud boasts with the dramatic irony of his actual situation, revealing his own hidden fatalistic fears. All right, Section 1, the elite warriors, building the roster of invincibility. So starting in verse 1.8, Duryodhana is basically sizing up his forces, and he starts listing his heavy hitters. When you're heading into the battle of your life, you look to your legends, and he's relying on a coalition of heroes who are known for being literally always victorious. And we're not talking about random hired mercenaries here. We're talking brothers, sons of elite teachers, a deeply interwoven network of family and personal ties that actually spans across both sides of the war. He's essentially reassuring himself by looking at this unbeatable, tangled web of pure power. Moving on to Section 2, the illusion of victory. Dramatic irony on the battlefield. Because a roster of elites is really only half the battle, right? In verse 1.9, Duryodhana makes this incredibly proud, sweeping declaration. He says, "There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake." And he's looking at warriors like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya. These are guys fully equipped, highly trained in military science. His chest is totally puffed out here. He's looking at a sea of highly trained men ready to risk absolutely everything just for him. He sees this unbreakable wall of loyalty and lethal skill. But here is where the source commentary hits us with a devastating, dramatic irony. Yes, these guys are absolutely determined to lay down their lives for his sake, but the commentary points out that their ultimate fate is already sealed. It's a done deal. They actually will die at Kurukshetra. And why? Simply because they threw their lot in with the sinful party of Duryodhana. Their cause is fundamentally flawed from the jump, meaning that all this military science and advanced weaponry is completely useless against the cosmic inevitability of their defeat. And that brings us to this wild psychological crossroad, extreme confidence versus inevitable doom. Despite the grim reality painted by the text, that this entire massive army is marching straight into a meat grinder, Duryodhana remains 100% confident he's going to win. He is totally blinded by the math. He sees his friends, the quality of the weapons, the sheer volume of his forces, and it successfully shields his mind from the reality of his impending doom. Which takes us to Section 3. Comparing the armies, immeasurable versus limited. So fueled by all this supreme confidence, he makes his tactical assessment in verse 1.10. He looks at his own army and sees a force that is literally immeasurable, perfectly shielded by his highly experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. But then he looks at the enemy, the pawn of his army, and completely dismisses them as just limited. And he notes they're protected by a lesser, way less experienced general named Bhima. It's a classic commander move, hyping up your own guys while completely downplaying the threat of the enemy. And the commentary really nails how incredibly dismissive he's being here. It notes that, in terms of military experience, Duryodhana looks at the enemy commander, Bhima, as nothing more than a mere fig in the presence of his own mighty general. A fig. He's literally verbally shrinking his opponent to project this absolute superiority. I mean, if the guy across the field is just a fig, what is there to even worry about? Let's look at Section 4. The commander's hidden fear. The psychological pivot. Because beneath all that posturing, all the grandstanding and the outward bravado, there is a massive psychological twist. We really have to ask ourselves, if his army is so immeasurable and his general is so vastly superior, why is Duryodhana secretly terrified? Why would a leader with every mathematically verified advantage harbor this deep-seated, gnawing anxiety? Well, the text tells us he was always envious of Bhima, the exact same guy he just verbally dismissed. The commentary exposes this fatalistic truth just eating away at his mind. Get this, Duryodhana knows perfectly well that if he dies in this battle, he will only be killed by the very man he just insulted, Bhima. That is wild. He's got the endless army, he's got the greatest general on earth, but he harbors this deeply personal, inescapable fatalism. He knows for a fact that his destiny is inextricably linked to Bhima. So let's synthesize this to really grasp the commander's mindset. It creates this incredibly relatable psychological paradox. On the macro level, looking at the big picture, he is completely confident in absolute victory. He trusts his far superior general, Bhishma, and literally doesn't see a way he can lose. Yet, on the micro level, in the dark corners of his own mind, he's harboring this secret, envious terror of a single person, Bhima. He's wholly assured of victory strategically, but personally terrified of the guy he just called inferior. It is a perfect snapshot of logic and deep-seated fear just battling it out in the human mind. Which brings us to our final, lingering question. Can strategic superiority and endless armies truly mask the fatalism of a guilty conscience? This whole breakdown really leaves us wondering if Duryodhana's grand military posturing, the massive rosters, the weapon bragging, comparing the generals, is really just a desperate psychological shield against his inevitable fate. It forces us to look at how fear operates in the minds of even the most powerful, heavily armed leaders in history, doesn't it? The armor on the outside rarely reflects the anxieties on the inside. Thanks for joining me for this explainer today. And remember to always question what's really lying just beneath the surface.